So let's just start with a really wild thought. What if consciousness didn't just pop into existence with humans, or even with the first living creatures? What if it's a fundamental part of the universe, just like space and time? We're about to dive into a theory that could completely change how you see, well, everything. It's called Panpsychism.
All right, to really get a feel for this, I want you to try something with me. If you can, wherever you are, just close your eyes for a second. Just notice that simple feeling, the air coming in and going out. It's this quiet, steady rhythm, right? And you can kind of feel your own thoughts too, yeah? They just appear, drift through your mind. You feel you existing right here, right now. But here's the absolute kicker, the question that sits at the very heart of this entire mystery. Why does any of that feel like anything at all? Why isn't the universe just silent, dark matter blindly moving through space? Believe it or not, that simple feeling you just had, your inner world, it's actually one of the biggest, most stubborn, unsolved problems in all of science. I mean, think about it. Modern science is just incredible, right? We can explain how massive stars are born out of cosmic dust. We know how DNA, the very code of life, copies itself almost perfectly. We can even map out how our brains take in and process all this information from the world. But for all that power, there is one giant glaring exception. Science cannot explain experience itself. Not what we do, not how smart we are, but that raw, subjective feeling of what it's like to be you. You know, this mystery actually has a name. It's called the hard problem of consciousness. And it's basically this. Why does all that stuff happening in your brain, all the electricity and chemicals, feel like something from the inside? Why aren't you just a dark, silent machine? You know, like a super smart computer with nobody home? This is the question that literally keeps scientists and philosophers up at night.
So how in the world do you even begin to solve this? Well, there's this one radical idea that completely flips our picture of reality upside down. And this is the core idea of panpsychism. Okay, so take a look at this. We usually think of things like space, time, and mass as the fundamental building blocks of the universe, right? They're just there. Well, panpsychism basically says we need to add one more thing to that fundamental list: consciousness. The big idea here is that consciousness isn't something our brains make. It's a basic ingredient of reality itself, just like gravity or charge.
So, okay, what does that actually mean? Well, in this view, brains don't create consciousness out of nothing. They're more like complex radios that tune into it and organize it. The idea is that even an atom has an unbelievably simple, basic form of experience. When atoms combine into molecules, those tiny experiences combine too. And when they form something as incredibly complex as a brain, you get them organized into the rich, complex inner life that you're having right at this moment. So a rock isn't sitting there thinking about its day, but it might just have a tiny flicker of raw internal existence.
I know, this probably sounds completely bonkers. An electron that feels something? But wait, before you just write it off, let's take a really hard look at the standard scientific view and ask ourselves, is it really any less strange? See, the mainstream view is that consciousness just kind of poof appears when you arrange dead, unfeeling matter in just the right way. But that forces us to ask a really, really awkward question. At what exact point does all that dead matter magically wake up? Think about it like this. Does a single neuron have consciousness? Probably not. What about a million neurons? Maybe. But then you get to 86 billion neurons in a human brain, and suddenly, bam, consciousness. The standard view has no explanation for this. It's just this unexplained leap from nothing to something. Panpsychism just sidesteps this whole magical leap. Its answer is way simpler and, honestly, some people would say a lot more elegant. Matter never wakes up because it was never asleep in the first place. Okay, now, to be fair, this theory isn't some perfect magic bullet solution. Panpsychism has its own hard problem, and it's a really big one we have to talk about. So here's the trade-off. Materialism, its hard problem is explaining how experience begins. Where does it come from? But for panpsychism, the hard problem is explaining how all those tiny little experiences combine.
I mean, if every atom has its own little flicker of consciousness, how do they all merge together to create your single unified mind, instead of just being a noisy crowd of disconnected feelings? That's called the combination problem. And it just goes to show you that right now, every major theory of consciousness is wrestling with its own huge fundamental mystery.
Okay, so let's just imagine for a second we take this idea seriously. What does that do to our view of the universe and, well, our place in it?
You know, what's so fascinating about all this is that this radical idea, it isn't really new at all. You can find echoes of it all through ancient philosophies, in many indigenous traditions, and in Eastern teachings that have always seen the world as being fundamentally alive. It's almost like modern philosophy is using logic to circle back to an idea that humanity has known intuitively for thousands of years. And this leads to a really profound shift in perspective. If panpsychism is true, then you are not some isolated accident in a cold, dead universe. Nope, you're a complex expression of something that's universal. The universe isn't just some thing out there, watching you from a distance. It is literally experiencing itself through you. And that leaves us with this final, really provocative question to think about. What is your mind? Is it just a random biological accident? A brief flicker of light in an otherwise empty void? Or is it something more? A window, maybe, through which the universe itself becomes aware. Maybe you're not just alive in the universe, maybe you're part of how the universe is alive.